Welcome, everyone, to Distinctions for Life's office hours, the live stream that we are doing now every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. And thank you so much for showing up. I've been struggling with technical issues getting this one going, but it's going to be a great show because I have a guest that I think will be very helpful for people who are ambitious and interested in the kind of stuff that Distinctions for Life does. My guest today is Carley, and I forgot to ask her how to pronounce her last name. So I'm just going to bring Carley on, and then she can tell me that. And I always screw people's names up. I do not know why I do that. How do you pronounce your last name, Carley?
Ron, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to connect with you here. My last name is pronounced Hauck, and I typically mangle people's last names as well. So, yeah, Carley Hauck.
Well, Carley, we kind of just barely know. It's kind of like we met last week. I feel like we met last week, even though we're in this thing together, because we never had really a chance to talk. But we met, and then I went and looked at your stuff, and I really thought that there is some synergy between what Distinctions for Life does and what you do as well. And so we're going to talk a little about that specifically for people. But one of the things I like to do on this is kind of get the origin story of my guest. How did you come to start Leading From Wholeness in 2010? So it's been around for a decade. How did you come to start that? And then how has that journey been over this whole period of time?
Great question. Thanks. Well, so about 10 years ago, so I live in the San Francisco Bay Area in Oakland, and I had moved to the Bay Area after graduate school and was teaching a course actually on mindfulness at a community center. And I had a HR director find this course, and she reached out to me and she said, "Can you teach stressed out lawyers how not to be so stressed?" And I thought, yes, because my father was a stressed out lawyer, which actually brought me onto the path of meditation and mindfulness, because I wanted to find a more grounded, centered way of being with the waves of change. And boy, are we going through some waves of change right now with shelter in place. So luckily I have that strong foundation of finding my center and getting grounded. And that opportunity to work with these lawyers in this 1 hour lunch and learn kind of spurred this larger purpose that I've been stepping into, which is really supporting and empowering men and women leaders and non-conforming genders to really be a force for good in the world in how they lead others and how they lead themselves and how they drive business, so that it is focused more on planet and people versus profit. And that has taken me in many different ways. I have been teaching at Stanford University now for the last 6 years. It started off teaching on meditation and mindfulness and resilience, and then they kept inviting me to teach on different classes. So I pretty much teach specifically on topics related to leadership, so emotional intelligence, resilience, purpose. How do we have challenging conversations and create healthy conflict? And then I also teach at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business on embodied leadership, which is really, how do we show up with more courage, with more confidence, with more resilience, and lead our teams. And I have worked with a lot of different companies, from LinkedIn to Pixar to Cliff Bar, cultural transformation, leadership and development. And that kind of gives you the spectrum of my journey. But I still really love what I do. I feel really inspired. And especially right now in this global shelter in place, I've just been feeling an even larger call to be of service. And yeah, that's a bit of my journey.
All right. And so you started doing this consulting, then you were, the first thing you did was teach stressed out lawyers how to be less stressed out. And that has just grown since then.
Yes.
Did you think this was going to be, when you started, did you think this was going to be my work, my business? And at the beginning, and if not, which most of us don't, at what point did you think this is the thing I'm going to be doing?
You know, it's evolved over time. And I think as my capacity has continued to grow, and I'm able to see the impact that I have on people and leaders and companies, it's continued to expand, I think, what I felt was possible. Starting off with a 1-hour class, I saw I was making positive benefit, but then I thought, how can I make even more positive impact? And so that really shifted my lens towards leadership and working with people that had more influence and power, because ultimately I believe that business really has the opportunity to be a force for good in the world in the ways that government cannot. And so if I can inspire those leaders and those businesses to support a thriving, sustainable world, that's where I want to put my energy.
So I remember once I was part of I was at a church that had small groups, and they wanted me to lead a small group. And I got asked this question. This was decades ago. I mean, this must have been the 90s. What is leadership? How do you define leadership? So how do you define leadership, Carley?
Great question. Well, when I think of leadership, I actually think of conscious leadership. We can have conscious and we can have unconscious, and that's really kind of part of the branding of my business. So when we're unconscious, we tend to be reacting versus responding. So reacting could be, moving into judgment or aggression or making a decision really fast without thinking about the bigger picture or how that's going to impact my direct report or team member. It could be coming from, a place that lacks compassion and empathy and wisdom. But when I think of conscious leadership, I think of growing this, I call it the inner game, growing this inner game of empathy, of emotional intelligence, of self-awareness, of resilience, of well-being, of authenticity, and then we lead from that place. So it's really about, how am I leading myself on the inside? Am I compassionate to myself? Am I forgiving with myself? Am I aware of my blind spots, my thoughts, my beliefs? And if I am, then how am I leading others from that place? So ultimately, I think the best leaders are self-aware. They're able to manage themselves so that when everything is moving, and it is right now, it's like it's a wave, I can go, whew, okay, all right, how am I relating to myself? How am I relating to this situation, this moment? And now how do I want to show up in service? How can I show up to be my best? But that requires a fair bit of awareness and practice. And so you can be a leader, but you're not necessarily an influential or leader that's making positive impact in the world. I think the leadership that I'm most interested in awakening and inspiring in people is this conscious leadership.
Okay. I can understand that, because we do a lot of things kind of just by reaction, as you put it, or reflex, and not sitting down and, well, it seems to me that a lot of people have no idea where they even want to go, right? Like they just, they're either running on scripts that they've had their whole life, or they're doing what they think they ought to be doing, or, all that kind of thing. But even once you get a vision for where you want to go and what you want to do, having that move into being effective at doing that, and how you get yourself to that. Because in a way, when I say people just react, a lot of times you do react, and you don't have any choice about that, right? You don't have the time to think about what you're doing. So I guess the key in those situations is to train yourself ahead of time so that those reactions are the reactions that you want to have. And I think that's something that people don't do enough, or just don't think about. I would assume, since you teach leadership, you don't think that leaders are born. You think they're made.
I actually think that everyone can be a leader. That's what I think. And I feel like in this time of this worldwide shelter in place, people are showing up in ways that maybe they've never shown up, because they're going, okay, that needs to be done. That needs to change. No one's doing it. This person's like over here, they're scattered. How can I show up? So, I mean, that's, I think, one of the beautiful things that's happening is that everybody on your team at work can be the leader. They just have to feel called. They don't have to have the title. They can go, I want to help. I'm going to go do that. You know, do I have permission to go do that? Or would that be helpful if I went and did that? Right? Like that's leadership. And I guess also to go back to what you shared, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. You said that something like, and if I've mangled this, please correct me, something around, we don't always have control over how we react. I think you said something like that. Does that feel true? Yeah.
I would say in some situations, I think.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say yes. Sometimes we don't control our reactions.
Well, what I've learned through my meditation practice, which I've had for 20 years, and that's really kind of how I started working with leaders and leading from wholeness, is that when I am meditating, when I'm creating a practice of pausing, of deeper centering and stillness, when things are changing, which they always are, and they are more so in this climate of our shelter in place and coronavirus, when I have the awareness, which is really what we get from a meditation practice, I have a choice how I show up in every moment. And when we're not aware, we move into our reactivity, going back to the word react, which is the fight, flight, freeze response. And that is our more primitive nervous system. That's the sympathetic nervous system, which is responding from fear. So there's a lot of fear right now in our climate because we as human beings, we don't like uncertainty. We want to know that we have control. But guess what? We don't have control. We have never had control. Life is always changing. It's always going to be impermanent, always. And that constantly has us moving. And so this is an opportunity to surf the waves. And the only thing that I feel like we have control over is actually our inner being, our response to what's happening. And that comes from pausing, from deep breathing, from observing versus reacting, and then course correcting a lot. Being like, oh, I just did that again. All right, back up, start over.
Right.
I
would.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're necessarily disagreeing. I do think it's that when you're in the moment of choice or confrontation's a bad one, but we'll go with confrontation because that's a place where people are uncomfortable. You often what I find is there's two things. One is you have a knee-jerk feeling in reaction to something. And if for a lot of people that they immediately react to whatever that is. And you do have to train yourself to give yourself that moment to respond. Something that I've still been unable to clearly articulate. I should go reread the original source, but was something that Stephen Covey talked about in 7 Habits, and he was talking about responsibility, and that is creating a space between some stimulus and your response so that you can respond to it. You have the ability to respond, but too often we don't. I had a friend a long time ago, and this is kind of a weird aside to it, but he was a dorm director for a local college, and this was a while back. And he said, when I go give people bad news, when I tell them they're in trouble, because they're going to be mad. Like you just know that's going to happen. And so instead of getting upset about it, he said, I just let them do it. Like, okay, I know when I tell you you're in trouble that you're going to get mad, and I just sit there and wait for you to be done, because you're going to have that reaction, and then it's going to go over, you're going to do whatever it is that they do. And then you'll come back to being rational and thinking about it again. Now, it shows him putting that response in there, right? Like, he's like, I already know in this situation how I'm going to react. And I'm pretty confident about what they are. And then on the other hand, it's the other side, not necessarily, these are young college guys, which may or may not be the most trained human beings, but they were just having that reaction. He expected them just to have a reaction. And so I don't know if that's relevant, if those stories are relevant to what we've both been talking about. Would you say his reaction, his ability to sort of put himself in the position to know that when he runs into these things, that he has already trained himself to react differently?
Well, so
or at least pause and.
Well, so what you're talking about, you're saying this training, he's trained himself to react this way. I don't know if it's necessarily conscious. It's a pattern. It's a habit pattern. And so just like we have a habit pattern of the mind, we have a habit pattern of our behavior. And actually, the mind is what always creates the behavior. So for example, if I have this thought when something challenging comes up, I don't like this. I don't like this. If that's my thought, then I'm probably going to respond in a more aggressive, confrontive way. But if I can have something happen and then I change my thought, okay, this isn't pleasant, but this is how it is. This isn't pleasant, but this is how it is. I have a different response. I might just actually be able to kind of breathe in that, relax a little bit. I can find some freedom in how I respond, a choice. Right. And I'm not going right into reactivity, but I'm going into responsiveness, like what you said. And so one of the gifts I feel that is possible in the shelter in place time is because we are in some ways slowing down. That's the invitation, is to slow down right now, is to come back to ourselves, to look at our patterns. What's not serving me? And how I relate to myself, and how I relate to my coworkers, to my friends, to my family, to my loved ones. Where do I have an opportunity to shift right now? Because when we shift internally, we shift collectively. And we're probably going to be in this shelter in place for 2 more months, maybe more, maybe we have no idea. That's the uncertainty. But right now, we do have a choice in how we show up. And I think it's a really beautiful opportunity to shed these patterns that aren't serving. I mean, for myself, I've been really looking at that. And it's also the work that I do in the world. So I never want to be a hypocrite, but I'm using this opportunity for myself in full transparency to forgive more, actually, to bring even deeper levels of forgiveness to myself, but to everyone around me. And that requires that I drop the narrative. Again, going back to that thought, I drop the narrative of what I think is happening or the story I have about that person. And when I drop that, I kind of de-armor a bit. And I can meet that person just here, just in this moment, without the story. And then that can shift the pattern of how I relate to that person, how I'm relating to myself. I don't know. I can go in tangents sometimes, but that's
that's fine. It's interesting because I was going to ask you when you were talking about that, what do you call thinking about how you think, and how you thinking about your own thought processes?
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. I'm not.
Well, what do you, I mean, like when you're talking about, okay, I need to go and examine myself and determine, and, in the process, you said you determined you needed to forgive more, right? Or maybe when
What,
which I'm sure is meditation for you, right? Like that's well, I don't know. I'm not a big meditator. I've done some of it. But uh,
it's,
this idea of thinking about your thinking, do you know what I mean?
yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate you clarifying. That's helpful. So, meditation is a practice where you sit. You sit and you just actually sit with what is. You allow the thoughts and feelings to come and go, and they will, and they come and go all day long, whether you're sitting on a cushion or a chair or not. But from that place of being able to sit, you observe. You observe what's happening versus get attached to thought patterns. And so for myself, I'm observing myself in the midst of this shelter in place. I'm observing what's actually supporting me in this experience and what's not. And so from a meditation practice, it gives me greater awareness of my thoughts and my patterns. So to answer your question, I'm just having greater awareness. And we all have patterns that aren't working for us, honestly, right? It's like, I'm always doing this, or I'm always doing that. And that is the result I'm getting. And it is actually not the result that I really want, right? So for me, I'm looking at where is my reactivity coming up, right? Like, when am I
Mhm.
not calm and cool and collected? And for me, it's been recognizing that I have this story about this person that is actually not allowing me to relate to them in a way that actually is more attuned and compassionate and loving. And that's actually not how I want to be.
Right.
So I'm shifting that. Like I'm shifting it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, it does. Th- and I don't know what I'm trying to get to with that, but it's something I think about as I've been working on DFL, and we've got this project in our group that we're supposed to be coming up with our framework. And one of the things I think about is the stuff that I do and that I teach is not going to work if well, it won't work if you can't think about what you're doing. A lot of times, you see this when people want to blame the other person or blame some external circumstance or something like that. Once you start giving that control away of your own reactions, for instance, that's when you see a lot. Whereas people are like, that just makes me mad. Like, no, you get mad because of that. Like, it doesn't make you get mad.
Right.
You get mad, right?
You're
And
yeah,
if you think, if you can, yeah, if you can get in there, right? If like you can realize, okay, why am I getting mad? And if you can think about what is it that causes this reaction? Is this just something that I got mad about it once and now I'm just mad about it every time I hear? Is this that there's something else going on in my past or my head, or do I believe something about this? I think that's a very common one, and kind of what you were talking about. It was like, well, if that person says this, then it's because that person is like this and that means this, right? And it's like this whole hallucination that you have about the other person. But you've got to be able to be inside to catch yourself, right? Like to think about how you're thinking and how you're reacting.
Yeah, you're speaking to being aware of your thoughts.
Right.
So that one thought, the one narrative, the one story, we could call it so many different things that you have about this person or this situation, that creates emotion. So if the thought is, this person wronged me or betrayed me or disrespected me, that usually is going to bring up some variation of fear and anger. And if you keep replaying that narrative, that story, you're going to keep feeling angry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I teach a lot on emotional intelligence, and one of the fastest ways you can shift that is actually just naming that you feel angry. When it's called affect labeling. So when I go, I feel angry right now. I feel freaking angry right now, whatever it is. That actually tells the amygdala, which is part of our emotional brain and the limbic system, that we're angry. And we can actually calm our nervous system down because we've been angry before. We've been angry like a million times in this lifetime. But if we don't realize that we're angry, we go right into our blood pressure and our heart rate getting up and like our hands getting tight. But if we can just go, I'm angry, it actually just allows us to be with the anger. And because all feelings actually are expressed through our physical body, when we can tap back into our body and just breathe and even just notice, where's the anger in my body right now? No, it's in my belly. Or it's in my jaw. Can I just be with that instead of like attaching to that story? Can I just allow the anger to release? And then we come back into balance and you can interact with that person without anger.
Yeah. So you we're coming up on 26 minutes, and you are getting ready to teach something. You have a big thing going on. Can you tell us about that? Like, see, a big thing. Ron uses big words. It's just a very important part of the process of the big words that Ron uses. But could you tell us a little bit more about what you're planning, what you're getting ready to do? I mean, this is like really soon. So we made about last week, but like this is really soon for you.
Yeah. Well, Ron, first, I just want to say this has been such a great conversation. I'm really enjoying our discussion, and thank you for inviting me on. Yeah, I feel deeply touched by it. The thing that I'm about to do, the big thing, is I've been really feeling a call to be of service right now. And I am developing this 8-week inner to outer journey that will really support us to thrive and to really step into our confidence and our courage and who we want to be during this time of shelter in place. And tomorrow at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, I'm doing a free coaching call on how to embody courage. And I will share more tips and tools of how you can access that. But then I'm going to invite you into this deeper journey that starts on Friday, April 10th. And you can sign up for the whole journey of 8 weeks, or you can actually just sign up for individual classes. And again, it will start April 10th through May 29th. And I'm co-facilitating each class with one of my beloved friends and colleagues that are all experts on various topics related to resilience, leadership, embodiment, resilience, courage. It's going to be really fun. I know, like, fun during shelter in place, but I just feel so inspired and excited about it. And I would love to have you join us and come play.
Okay. Anybody else? The link. Oh, I meant to do this, and I'm going to do it now before I forget. So I am new to the whole live streaming thing, and so we are learning as we go. I'm going to drop that URL, your URL, into the chat because that follows this even in the replays.
Great. Well, and actually that link, I put this offering together very quickly. So if you go to the video of that link and you go below the video, you'll see register a free coaching call. So there's 2 different buttons on that website. One is to like pay for the course or the one class, whatever you choose. And then the other is to register for the free call. So you want to click on the link underneath the video, and then you will get to see me tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time. Thank you, Ron.
Sure. Any other final words that you might have?
Just would say, find your breath, find your balance, and be kind to yourself and others during this time, because we're all doing the very best that we can. And we actually always are. But in this time of uncertainty, we tend to lean more into fear. And that's why I'm trying to encourage you to come into courage, which is being willing to actually just be in this without all your armor. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone who has watched this, or more likely will watch this later. And if you'd like to know more about Distinctions for Life, you can, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe using the subscription button below. If you're on Facebook, there's a Facebook page, or you can go to the YouTube channel. Either way, and get more. I come out with videos every Sunday at 5 p.m., which is each of which is a distinction, which is a small change that can make a big difference for you. And I've just finished a series on public speaking, because I believe that's one of the skills that leaders and business leaders and entrepreneurs in particular need to have, and is often overlooked and neglected. So I gave you a few tips on that. You can also find out I've been doing this for a while, so you can find lots of different distinctions, hopefully something that will help you. And we are doing these live streams. I actually started this during this crisis, that I would start doing live streams. And so I try to do one every Tuesday and every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Time. If you would like to know that that's going to happen, then you need not only to subscribe to the channel, but you need to hit the notification bell, and then you'll be told ahead of time. And we will be back, I'm going to give you a little distinction and a little Ron semi-pet peeve that he does to himself as well as other people, is when you're a solopreneur, which, like, for the most part, DFL is me, and you keep wanting to say we, but it is only me at the moment. Although I do have members of my team. I should do a whole distinction on teams and we. But for now, it's just Ron. And until next time, just remember, take care of yourself. And I will see you next time.